Can you hear me? Is the audio and are the video working well?
We'll go ahead and call this council work session to order. It is Tuesday, July 16th, time is 2 p.m. Go ahead and open it up for visitor comments. If you'd like to make a comment, please come on up, state your name for the record, and keep it to 3 minutes or less.
Susan Baker. I'd like to just make a couple comments about Halloween Town coming up. I'm a little concerned that we don't have someone in place yet to operate Halloween Town. I just got off the phone with Holcomb Lawler from Klondike, and a bunch of the businesses are very concerned that we have tons of people that have already bought plane tickets, have been planning to come to Halloween Town. For the last 3-4 years, have been planning to come over previous times. And do we have events happening this year? It's a big question for all of us that rely on it as businesses, number one. Number two, do we really need to close downtown for the entire time on the weekend? Should we wait until the first or second weekend of October this year? As I don't think we have as many events planned this year. Number three, is there any additional help that the city could provide to create more events or help the businesses and the new company as changing at this late date? Who is planning this? Because normally we would have people coming, whether it's Kimberly Brown or the people from Twilight or whatever. We have no clue if anybody's coming. And that has brought weekends of 15,000 people, 10,000 people, 5,000 people. This has become a really big cash cow, sorry to say, but it's really true. And a lot of businesses, this has been the make it or break it for them for the entire year. And we feel that this change at this time of the year, it would have been better to continue with who we had and changed after Halloween Town. And in December started with somebody new. But since that isn't happening, how can we help? And what can the city do to help us? And is there any way for us to create some ways to make a better situation for all of us? We're very excited that the city is working on improving the downtown. It's going to be great for us as a community. But we do not want to end up with egg on our face and being blasted on social media because people come, people spend a lot of money to come here. I've talked to individuals that come, they stay for 4 or 5 days. I'm always amazed when they talk about how fabulous our city is. I'm going, what do you do here for 5 days? I know my time's up, but it is just the most fascinating thing to me in the world that they enjoy our city for 5 days and think we are fabulous. I don't see us fall on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan.
Hi, Patrick Berkeley.
And Jan Berkeley.
Uh, We're here today to announce some good news and the fulfillment of a promise that I made when I was running for city council 4 years ago, that I would not use any of the council stipend for personal gain. And that the intent was to develop some kind of foundation or organization to promote environmental education in our community. As Jen and I looked at various ways to go about this, we decided to work with the Oregon Community Foundation. So rather than create our own nonprofit organization and go through all of that, we contacted the Oregon Community Foundation to see what we could do. And we learned that we could contribute money and establish a donor advised fund. So as of July 1st of this year, the Berkeley Family Environmental Education Fund was established with the Oregon Community Foundation with an initial contribution of $25,000. There will be additional contributions made. As a donor advised fund, the money is controlled by Oregon Community Foundation and invested by them. And depending upon their anticipated rates of return every year, there is a percentage set that we can then use for charitable purposes. So we work with an advisor, and our advisor will then direct us. We're focusing on trying to provide funding to Columbia County organizations that are related somehow to environmental education. So that each year we will be making a minimum of $1,000 grants, either two $500 grants or $1,000 grant annually. Upon our passing, the fund will then be, the director of the fund will then be our daughter, Sarah. Upon her passing, which we hope will be many, many, many years from now, the money is then in returned to the Oregon Community Foundation pool, so that even though our fund passes with us and with our daughter, that money will continue to be used in the pool for the Oregon Community Foundation for their future purposes. So Jen and I just wanted to come to let you know that we've done that, and we would encourage anyone who's interested in making some type of charitable contribution and as a legacy for their family to investigate doing something with the Oregon Community Foundation. Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. Thanks, Patrick. Thanks, Jen.
Thank you.
Okay, other visitor comments?
I'll go.
Come on up.
Hey, Veda Clark. The thing I want to talk about, and this is going to be a sore subject, is fireworks. I have been listening to fireworks for 13 days, 4 o'clock in the morning until midnight. Something needs to be done. Personally, I would like them just to be banned, but that probably won't happen. But something needs to be done, whether there's a time limit, 2 days, 3 days, 1 day, something, so it's not 13 solid days of fireworks. I don't know what else to say for all the same reasons all the other cities do, the noise of fire. I don't even set them off when I'm picking up debris in my yard. So it's a little ridiculous. It used to be a day or two, now 13 days. That needs to stop. So that's all I have to say. It wasn't very much. I just want to let you know how I feel about it. And I'm sure I'm not the only one that feels that way. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Steve Topaz. Last time I made some comments and I looked at the packet to see what was recorded, and of the 3 points I made, one was recorded, and that point was we ought to change our recorder because full information that was spoken is not being recorded. ORS 221.725, ORS 7221.727, ORS 221.729, ORS 193.07. Those are the identifying numbers for having to deal with surplus property. That was mentioned on by my talking, which is not mentioned at all in the record. That should be looked into. Another point I made was the toxic waste of the Millard property, and that was not made in identifying the property, nor was the business of what was the value of the property. That's just what was missed last time. The importance of some of that showed up. We had a sewer plant re-permit hearing with DEQ this last week. Phase B environmental investigative report, environmental report TD 4327 Boise Cascade clarifier solids landfill, toxic waste problems of the old hospital land, contaminated water, drinking water well, Sykes Road sewer problem, reservoir problem, all got connected together with this sewer permit. The city did not inform the DEQ that we had put $800,000 into getting a permit to turn the sewer treatment pond into a toxic waste dump. The information was passed to them about the geology that was collected by Boise, by Mo Forster, having to do with the toxic waste dump, and which unfortunately or fortunately also points out problems of the geology underneath the lagoon as just a water pond. The other thing that came up, we'll say oversights, or the way we talk about it. First oversight, we talk about that we dump our sewage into the river and it goes down the river. It was never really definitively described that you dump it into the river. If the tide's coming in, it goes uphill, and when it goes down, it goes downhill. But part of the uphill takes it back to the Scappoose kayak landing, where it sits, and a great deal of this waste material settles out in Scappoose Bay. The importance of that now comes up with the next part. The original sewage treatment was just dump it in the river. When we combined with Boise, we built the pond, we dumped sewage and hot water. Part of that sewage treatment was some of the materials were taken out before the water was dumped into the lagoon and put to a waste dump up behind the county fair. That county fair dump is leaking into McNulty Creek, which is coming down here. Some of the leakage is being pumped to the tune of 5,000 gallons down the Sykes Road sewer. And remember, that sewer line is at 100% capacity. So not only do we have human waste there, but we have
Steve, you're gonna need to wrap it up because you're over your 3 minutes, and I understand what you're trying to do. But we complied to DEQ standards, and I even, as mayor, understand that that dump out there, which all the Boise employees know what that dump was out there. It has nothing to do with sewage. And you included sewage in that, and it has a leachate system that feeds down into our sewer. And then is treated. And it's all DEQ. I know that, and I'm not even an employee of the paper mill. Now, you are putting out false information right now.
If you read environmental T
You need to wrap it up.
4327,
Wrap it up.
Boise Cascade Clarifier Solids, that's a DEQ
Wrap
report.
it up, Steve.
That is a DEQ report, not a lie. And that's saying you have a big problem. And it is part of the sewer problem because it's delayed.
Asking you to wrap it up.
I know, you're trying to stop, you got a public health problem. The leakage also is going down the Multnomah Creek
Steve,
and going into your number
asking you
one
to wrap it up.
drinking water well.
Just asking you to wrap
Be
it up.
careful that you have that McNulty Creek's within 50 feet of a drinking water level, and that's polluted. So somebody asked me, why do I keep doing this? Because you keep cutting me off. And I point out, I do it, so I get pointed off.
I'll give you
Because
more time
people
than anybody
don't want
today.
me to talk, and the city isn't part of that. And you're demonstrating this very well, which I thank you for. Have a good day.
Were you not at a barbecue just where I was this weekend?
No.
You were.
No.
Did you ask one question about this?
Yeah.
You did not ask one question about this to me.
No, you were talking to somebody else. It wasn't a business day. It was a celebration for the neighborhood, not a business. Hey, have a good
My
day.
phone is always on, and for any Boise employees who would like to come and testify that there is absolutely no sewage out there beyond the fairgrounds, please do.
As I say, read environmental ID 4327. Boise Cascade.
Your numbers and your
That was public-
figures,
June 24,
all DEQ.
2024. It's a brand new report.
Any other visitor comment?
Brady Preheim, St. Helens. The first thing I wanted to respond quickly to is the construction, which you made comment at the last park event about going to the same spot and having 4 pipes. And while I understand that, it does seem that normally they're digging a hole, putting in a pipe, filling in the hole, digging the hole again, putting in the pipe again. And so while I understand that there are multiple pipes, maybe they should look ahead and dig the hole once, put in the 4 pipes and then fill in the hole.
That'd be separation by law.
Yeah, but
Water and sewer have to be.
it's frustrating when you see the same area the same hole being dug multiple times. And I'm, obviously other people are commenting because you made a comment about it. I'm just saying that,
Making an observation myself.
oh, well, because it is frustrating. And it also seems that that road that we're building to nowhere, is too narrow. I don't see how 2 cars are gonna get through that road. And so I don't know if the plan is for that to be a one-way, but it is clearly not wide enough for it to be a 2-lane road. And so I'm hoping that someone will look at that before it's finished and correct it now when it will be less expensive than to correct it later, because it's clearly not a 2-lane road. The next event is the Sanat Castle Contest, which we have like 12 days from now. Clearly, that's not gonna happen. And contrary to what was said here, and you guys need to make that decision to say that it's canceled. And it's not fair. These people have bought tickets and are planning on coming, and you need to let them know if it's not gonna happen. And you can't keep kicking it down the road. The logistics of that event are immense. They get the equipment and everybody over there. It's obviously you don't have permit, you don't have captain, you don't have lots of stuff. And it's not gonna happen. And it's sad because it's my favorite event actually that the city does, but you need to cancel it and let people at least know that it's not gonna happen. We still don't have a contract with Treadway. This is the 4th week. They were given 7 days. Mr. Hubbard specifically said they got 7 days. I remember you saying that on public comment, and if they don't sign in 7 days, we're moving on. You advocated very eloquently for the glamping camping people, Cascadia Gambling, and yet now you're saying nothing about it. We should be moving on. I'm not saying that I think that that's the person, but at this point in time, if Treadway doesn't have a contract, they don't have a contract, and this delay is ridiculous. Events like the Sandhouse contest are canceled. And Treadway themselves said they need 8 months to prepare for Halloween Town. They will get like 6 weeks. So that's another event that's probably gonna be canceled and not happening. Mr. Sundin made the comment about, oh, it's time to just rip the Band-Aid off. You know what happens when you rip a Band-Aid off, a wound that's not healed? You get a bloody mess. And that's what's happening. The city is bleeding. The city within this community is known to be a laughing stock. Other agencies have paid attention, other city councils have paid attention, other elected officials. The city has a really bad reputation. You took a historically phenomenally successful event and you destroyed it. And it's really not okay. It's really not okay. And you guys have done a really bad job. You could not have planned this transition worse if your idea was to cancel Halloween and make it go away. And it seems to me that's exactly what your plan was. It couldn't have been worse. You planned no, contrary, your city administrator tried to tell you, Kathy Payne, your city recorder, everybody has tried to tell you that you should have a transition. You didn't. And this is what you get. And it's not fair to Mr. Walsh that you're now trying to make him an events coordinator. It's not fair that you've canceled the Sandcastle contest and who knows what's going on with Halloween Town. You need to get your act together. And if Treadway hasn't signed their contract by now, they're done. Move on to the next person and see what happens there. But do something.
Thank you. Lisa, I'll remind you that the timer next time.
Yes.
Any other visitor comments? Okay, do we have any on Zoom, Lisa? Okay, I'm gonna do some late payment service and, cause we got 4 of you, I'm gonna have, well, Buck's not here, but I'll have you come up as I call you and then we'll get pictures, okay? So, our first length of service award is hereby granted to Ryan Powers for 5 years of continuous public service to the city of St. Helens, Oregon. Ryan, come on up. Hold on to this, because we're gonna have to get some pictures, because Crystal or Lisa is gonna be, oh, sorry about that. Okay, our next length of service award is hereby granted to Nick Ratliff for 5 years of continuous public service to the city of St. Helens, Oregon. You guys are all 5, by the way. The 15-year guy, you didn't show.
Busy in the field.
Our next length of service award is hereby granted to Adam Rathke for 5 years of continuous public service to the city of St. Helens. And our last length of service award is hereby granted to Buck Tupper with 15 years of continuous service to the city of St. Helens. Well, thank you guys for all your efforts. We see you out there giving it your all our employees. We're very, very proud of you guys. Your dedication to our community and day in and day out, you're out there doing it. So we really appreciate you. Should we get together and then single?
Let's have you in front of here instead as a group. Move on.
Maybe in the middle. Maybe in the middle.
Wherever you want to be. You're too tall. I don't know if I can stand next to you. I can bring it down. All right, and again, you know, day in and day out, you guys are out there doing it, and we know it's a thankless job. We truly do know that. You know, when you're called in and you're working overtime, all of you guys, because you're out protecting, these guys are out making sure that the water and sewer and all that's being taken care of. And when there's a leak, or when there's, for example, barricades being blown down on the 4th of July, you guys had to come in and help out and let those out. Likewise, something really tragic happens on the 4th of July, you're called in, so. Thank you guys. Thanks. Thank you.
Yep, thank you. Yep. All right, and now that Buck's not here, I just want to say a few words about Buck because he is our maintenance supervisor and when he was put in that position, he has done nothing but excel in that position. And he, really is a good example of leadership and going the extra mile. He, again, too, steps up when called upon. He's salary, but, he was very instrumental in the 4th of July. We seen him there. And for Citizens Day. And he continues to, be of great service to the community. So thank you, Buck. Anybody else want to say anything else?
I think you did a really good job of summing up the emergency services that they all provide and how thankful we are for all of them. And Buck is really awesome. We're really lucky to have Buck. He's always there and always has an answer, and he's not afraid to speak up when you ask him questions. So I appreciate him.
Mhm.
Amazing dedicated staff, and I think what's that all? We brought 3 of them 5 years ago.
I know.
Yeah.
I know, that's awesome. And we have a few more coming up next month, so. I don't know how many years they have, but I know we got a few more, so. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and do a presentation of Strategic Network Group Broadband Assessment and Strategies. We have Michael Curry on Zoom. We'll go ahead and get our agenda taken. Are you there, Michael?
Yeah, can you hear me? Michael here. Hello,
I
Mayor.
can.
Hello, Council.
And you have the screen already up too, so we don't, if you don't want to see us, you don't have to, but we can see your update on St. Helens City Council on broadband planning, so.
Okay, great. Well, thanks. It's been, 6 months since we, since I last presented, back in December. And, you wanted to give you an update as well as talk about some of the next steps. So, next slide, please. In terms of agenda, wanted to cover over, some of those key findings, talk about some of those next steps, have a bit of Q&A. Our time is limited, but, want to make sure that you guys have answering questions. And if there's anything during my presentation, you have any questions, please don't hesitate, for clarification to jump in and happy to explain. And then looking for some direction from City Council. Okay, next slide, please. Just to give an update, sort of background, back in 2020, St. Helens recognized the need for that, broadband and digital infrastructure. S&G was hired and engaged in the fall of 2020. So we've been working almost 4 years with you. In that time, we looked at, you participated in the digital needs and readiness assessment, answering what are the goals and needs of broadband and identifying, some of those readiness issues and gaps. And then, broadband was #1 priority with at least 50% of St. Helens underserved, with speed being fair to poor. And so from that, we decided to, conduct an economic case analysis and, how much of this network could be paid for with existing budgets. From, the telecom and broadband, and 93% could be self-financed from our analysis. So based on that, we decided to move forward with the broadband impact and market assessment. Pretty involved. We had a high response rate, very good, over I think it was almost 15% of households. Lots of good data that we had, and we prepared a preliminary findings report that we submitted in August of 2022. And then presented to council in October. I provided an update in council back in December, as I said, in 23, and the decision was made to prepare the final report, which was submitted about a month ago, and now presenting some of those key findings and next steps. Any questions at this point, or I'll continue? All right, next slide, please.
I guess I could just add that this was a grant program that we got to get this study done. Back in COVID time when the broadband was, everybody realized how much of a problem there was. We were already kind of ahead of schedule on it, but that made it even clearer. And we'd already started this moving forward. So I just want to brush people up on why we're here today. And, this has been going on for a few years, Michael. That's all.
Thanks for that context. And in terms of the internet service costs, one of the key things that we found was that over 70% of households are spending at or above the national average, $75. So, the cost and satisfaction findings suggest there's a lack of competition in St. Helens. Next slide, please. And in terms of likelihood of changing service providers, we have for businesses and households over 90% saying that they're very likely or somewhat likely going to be changing service providers. Not a good thing. That needs to be addressed. And that's part of why we're having this discussion. Next slide, please. And part of the reason is this is an example. It's not to pick out any one service provider or another, but the concerned citizens of Columbia County, that's some of the comments they have about some of the service. And, you can see an example of a bill here, significant. So, how do we address that? Next slide, please. In terms of the impact of why this matters, well, for people who are of working age, the key workforce, they are 70% definitely or very likely going to leave without adequate broadband. And those who are the highest income brackets, again, they over 70% needing to leave. If you don't have the broadband that you need to work remotely, to access the lifestyle that you want, people will leave, and that's a significant issue that we need to overcome. And so to summarize, next slide. The key issues that we've identified, and that full report is available. John Walsh has a copy of it, can share with you. Is that the key issues are the high costs and high dissatisfaction with current broadband services. Obviously, this is now 2 years old, this data, but still, there's still issues, as you saw in that example I just gave from the Facebook group and the bills. The prime workforce groups will relocate to get the better broadband. And, this is, largely because there's not enough of a business case for the private sector to invest in those unserved and underserved areas. If there was enough of a business case, they'd be there already. And so how do we overcome that? Well, we go into this into much more detail in the report, but essentially, St. Helens recommend that they enter into public-private partnership to ensure that digital infrastructure is available to all in the greater St. Helens area. And I'll get into what that greater St. Helens area that is that we identified. Also, another step is to prepare for the upcoming BEAD funding to address high costs. And BEAD, and I keep forgetting the acronym, so I have to pull it up here, is the Broadband Equity Access and Deployment Program. There's $42 billion federal dollars, of which Oregon got, I think, is $689 million to address broadband gaps and digital inclusion. So next slide, please. So a little more detail here. I'll spend more time on this. This map that you see, the area in teal, which goes from Columbia City, includes St. Helens and goes all the way to Scappoose. That's the area that we've highlighted. There's 11,360 premises that are eligible for what that could be are considered broadband service locations. The cost overall to connect those with fiber is just under $26 million at about $2,200 a premise. Within those, there's 1,670 premises that don't have broadband. They have less than 25.3 megabits per second. And so, that's the area to focus on first. The area in black that you see on the map, that is federally funded, and it's RDOF funding. Don't ask me about the the acronym there. I can pull it up, but that's already been funded by federal, so that's really not eligible for funding. The red area to the west there and north that are more rural and high cost. And those are the areas that we want to focus on in a sort of subsequent phases. The key thing is that, when you have network operators and investors looking at investments, private sector investments in this, they need to have a minimum of 10,000 premises that they can, have enough operational revenues to sustain and then continue to build out. They need to be below that $2,500 per premise threshold as well, for this to be profitable, to be able to offer, 500 meg symmetrical at $49 a month, for example. This would be part of a first phase that would then extend out. We're also working with Columbia County to look at the entire county. But the first phase would be, establishing that core fiber municipal infrastructure, connecting all the anchor institutions. And then from there, building out to the region, the neighboring areas, the high cost areas, getting them covered, with that BEAD funding, hopefully. And then reaching up to across the country and potentially regionally. We'll also have discussions with other counties. But the key thing is here that there's no capital investment required from St. Helens for that 26 million for this phase. The St. Helens and Columbia County, as well as the Columbia City and Scappoose, we want to be as partners for, to secure that community anchor institutions, facilitate permitting, rights of way, et cetera, as well as be involved with the digital inclusion work, raising awareness, helping, training and building capacity for, health and education applications to be used by everyone. This is how you telework. These are the access for, telehealth and so forth, and that every, household that is connected, that they have access to that K-12 information, all those online courses and resources, that they don't have to drive to McDonald's or wherever to, sit in the parking lot to get Wi-Fi, that they have that. So this is fiber as far as possible to every premise. And with over 90% of businesses and households ready to switch providers, this is a way for, everyone to be connected and have that better service. And with the Columbia River PUD and other utilities who we've spoken to also being interested, that's a key partnership. And so again, this would be a first phase as part of a countywide or regional initiative. And I want to clarify what the role is with the next slide, because next slide, please, because the role here is not for St. Helens or Columbia County or Scappoose or Columbia City to be service providers. No, they're helping ensure that fiber infrastructure is there to connect everyone. So whether it's a broadband authority, utility, or the investors, that is built there, and that the private sector operator would operate the network, and that the various service providers that are there already and new ones that want to come in can provide it. The best example I think that I can share with you is, think of an airport authority. United or Alaska, they don't own the airport, Alaska Airlines. They can't afford that. It's a huge amount of investment over 25, 30 years sometimes. No, it's the locality that invests in that infrastructure. They hire someone to operate it. And then the airlines say, I need this many gates. And then, here are the rates, for those gates, whether it's 2 gates, 8 gates, or whatever. It's a similar sort of structural separation to ensure that they're, like the roads, everyone has access, but the service, FedEx, Amazon, the US Postal Service, all can go on those roads. It's for the consumers to decide who they want. I'll pause there to make sure that there's no questions.
I just know that when we started this, Michael, that it was started out that we were going to actually try to do this as a hybrid system just for the city of St. Helens, if you recall. It was going to be mostly hard cable, but we also talked about some towers as well. And it was going to be very it was going to be an investment for the city, although it would have been city owned. I think this is broadens it, and I know that the county was shortly after us was looking at this broadband, and I think this is the right route to go because you have the amount of customers that are needed in Columbia City and Scappoose to make it attractive for another provider. And what a good thing to have, not just one monopoly out here or a couple, CenturyLink and Comcast. You got potentially somebody new coming in. So,
well, just to clarify, they can be on that system as well.
yes,
There's the infrastructure, We want to get fiber as far as we can go, but in some of those high cost areas, as you said, it'll have to be hybrid because, you know, you cannot be spending $60,000 a premise to get, you know, fiber there. It's going to be as fiber as where we go to a tower and then, you know, fixed wireless, or, you know, that's where the engineers come in and earn their keep. But the goal is that everyone has connected with at least 100 by 100 megabits per second. And if you can go to the next slide, please, that sort of is clarified in some of those points. Next slide, please. So, you know, that there's one common fiber utility, like a water and sewer system, like the, you know, electrical system. It's open for uses by the public, by the private, that every premise is connected. It's not just middle mile, it's to the premise with at least 100 by 100. And then you've got reliable, lower cost broadband with private sector service options. You know, we're lowering the barriers, you know, for new market entrants, they don't have to put in that capital expenditure to connect to it's already there, that connection. They just need to get on the network with their service. And so that's what we call the structural separation of the infrastructure from the operations and service delivery. You know, government does what they're good at it, which is the infrastructure, long-term investments, and the private sector with service delivery, customer service and so forth, and their expertise, you know, do what they do best. And so you have a wholesale operator access entity that connects the providers and operates it 24/7, 365 and maintains the network. And then you have many service providers who use that digital infrastructure. And so, you know, diverse services are available at competitive rates to every premise then that's connected. And I think there's a little thing at the bottom. So if you haven't hit return, please again, there we go. So it's really an economic development platform for the public and private sectors.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to say.
Yeah. That's totally what you meant.
So next slide, please. So, you know, I wanted to have some Q&A. I had inserted another slide in the subsequent version, but really it's, you know, are there any questions to this? What we're looking for is, you know, direction from you that, you know, one, conduct the due diligence with those investors and the network operator options for this greater St. Helens area. You know, getting, you know, the Columbia City and Scappoose, you know, those planning people, you know, also available to talk about what is possible, what is feasible, because we've got to look at this as an aggregate market. When you have that scale, that's where you have sustainability. And then the operational revenues, so we can continue to build out, you know, to those high cost and areas that had not been connected yet. Gather the necessary information to develop a high level design and cost estimate. You know, we've done that, you know, that preliminary work, but let the engineers come in and do that detailed work with that design and cost estimates so that the capital investment group can then say, yes, you know, we feel confident with those costs based on these engineering's estimates, so they can go forward. And, you know, from what I've understood, this could be possible in Q3 of this year to get started if we get this work done. And, you know, another step is develop that plan for that greater St. Helens digital infrastructure. If you have a better name for this, I welcome it. But, you know, from August to December, you know, what are the steps? What do we need to get done? How do we prepare for the BEAD funding that's becoming available? There's a lot there. So, you know, having a plan done. And then preparing a draft resolution to move forward for submission at the next council meeting on August 7th.
Well, that next round of funding is coming up here just shortly. And with the work that we've done, I mean, John, the question would be how much is this gonna cost the city moving this forward?
Well, and that's a good question. As when we, you know, started this several years ago, there was some thought that there would be some contribution from the city to kind of seed this effort to get that, you know, fast, reliable, open access network and kind of be able to have that capacity to serve everybody. And it is looking like the business case is strong enough that it may not even need that. It's that it's, you know, below the $2,500 per customer. It's attracting private sector interest. And, you know, Michael and I talking about this, and it seems like this is better than, you know, this is a really good case right here. And it feels pretty exciting.
See full funding.
To have funding even without the BEAD funding that would help serve, those peripheral areas that are over that cap and take, more difficult to serve customers. And, it's going to depend on, our partners. It's going to depend on, the county's working with SNG, very excited about their work. Had good positive feedback from the PUD, working with Mike Sykes on, the pole attachment agreements and things the infrastructure bits that would take to make that happen. And I'm having trouble finding the downside, frankly. It looks really positive and encouraging, so.
And fiber optics, there's a new cable that would need to be brought in for the fiber optics, is that?
Yeah, that would be owned by the greater St. Helens.
So we're gonna be getting our streets done and digging
County?
them up again for a new conduit?
How many holes? do you wanna dig, Russ?
Seven, enough.
If I can add something, we're trying to find out how much is going to be aerial and how much is underground, what conduit is available. Underground is obviously more expensive. To the point, Mayor Scholl, that you mentioned, the contributions from St. Helens and Scabooze and Columbia City, for the area that we identified, it's dense enough that, private capital is interested. I think as we look at those higher cost areas where the cost goes above 2,500 per premise, that's where, that gap between what the private sector can invest and then what, the greater St. Helens area and the county can contribute. That's where those discussions need to look at. But our approach is to look at this. This is a first phase to get the whole county connected. But first, we got to get something solid, and then build from that with this digital infrastructure. All the anchor institutions, first responders, hospitals, schools, all those connected with high capacity so that they're not inhibited by cost or bandwidth. But those, as I said, those other areas that are going to be higher cost, that's where we're going to need some help. And I think a key thing is also the in-kind contributions of, getting the planners available, helping with the permitting, helping out with that digital inclusion programming to get people not only aware of, what is available online, what they can do, so that not only they benefit more, but that actually increases the business case, which increases the investor interest. So there's a nice mutual benefit there. Our goal in all of this is, getting people to, understand the technology, having it available, to use it to its full potential for economic growth and their quality of life.
Yeah, well, I know a lot of Oregon's already working on this type of stuff and we're behind a little bit on that in that area. And that's why we started looking at it. That's why the county's looking at it. And so, but what I hear you saying too, is that if we start with this Columbia City, Scappoose area, then the county can also go out for funding on those harder to reach areas and expand it as they get the funding. Is that what I
So the
heard?
design would be to be not just for this first phase, but for everything, but phasing it in so that we can accommodate and leverage, this network so that those high cost areas, the general manager of the PUD, Michael Sykes, that was his concern. How do we make sure those high cost areas are also connected? Absolutely. That's why we call it digital infrastructure, so that everyone has access.
UD, we're putting a lot of lines underground now for high impact areas, so holes are going away, so that's gonna be another expensive line if that goes in that same area.
Yeah.
Not where we'd go from here.
I think Michael's wanting, probably Michael Sykes is wanting some internet out in his area. He's way out.
Some people don't want internet out there.
Columbia City.
Well, the benefit of the utilities is that they've got power lines out there. And so they can bring in-kind contributions, and which can be counted for that BEAD funding. But also, so it's in also, not only do they have that as an in-kind contribution they can bring, but also it keeps the ratepayer base. Because if these people who are out there can't get the internet they need, and they have to leave, that decreases that rate base, making the utilities economic case even tougher. And also utilities are in the public service, and we're looking forward to working with them because I think there's so many advantages and so many new things that could be done, with the Internet of Things and monitoring and for health, safety, first response. There's so many things that can be done. So we're excited about the possibilities.
Well, I think you got our ear. I think everybody kind of agree on that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see a lot of downfalls. I will have more questions about exactly what in-kind services the city needs to provide and making sure that, we have the capacity to offer our planning services as appropriate. But I think at this time, we should just definitely try to continue. And John, of course, you can bring to us any issues that might arise with the in-kind or time from your staff.
Yeah, and it's not just the staff, it's also the other people that do this kind of work.
Yeah.
That do network planning, so it's different than just our land use planners and things like that.
Well,
That's
we
certainly
would
a
be
part of it.
involved from a city perspective as, some capacity.
Yeah, and I would say any meetings that we need to, anything we can do, if we need to get facilitate any meetings, we can help out in that too.
That's exactly what we're talking about, like those
Yeah.
kind of examples.
Yep.
Right, that's why I always want to make sure that John, has a good pulse on it so that he's, keeping us in the light of what we can handle. from
Yeah.
this, knowing his
Absolutely.
staff and their capacity.
Yep.
Well, that's why we're relying on Michael and consultants of his caliber that are experts in this field to help us along and advance this.
Yep.
Thing that this target that we've tried to hit, so.
Yeah, Michael, I don't know, facilitating these meetings in the near future, if, you have any, we're not gonna make any decisions, but any prospective people who have done this, that own businesses, if you could bring them to, just to give us an example of why it worked well, or maybe, if you know of somebody, that we could all hear that, collectively, and how it benefits the community, and, it's a win-win. Cause it is a win-win, ultimately. Yep.
Sure, we can organize those kind of meetings as well as, testimonials.
Yep. Okay, we will work with John on this and we can continue to look forward to, everything we've seen in next steps, I think was pretty, if we want to go back a couple slides, was pretty.
Do you have anything you want to
Yeah,
add, John? You
yeah,
look
I-
like you have something on
Yeah,
your page there.
our next steps looks like, what that looks like is a resolution. Authorizing to proceeding with a. Michael can help me out on what we're looking for. The private investors need some show of support from the city to test their business case more
Sure.
precisely, so.
And that's just in the form of a resolution.
Yes,
Okay.
Not today, but
yep. Okay, yeah, we're good with that too. We'll get that on our agenda.
Great. Well, thank you
Michael.
all
Yeah, thank
Thank
you.
Michael.
Yep.
until the 7th of August. Enjoy the rest of
Hey,
the
Yeah,
summer.
it's been a couple of years and then 6 months in between, we'll see. It's not gonna be quite 6 months. We'll see in a couple months.
Well, I think it's gonna
Bye-bye.
accelerate after that if it all goes to plan. So looking forward to this.
Sounds good.
Bye for now. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, our next item is municipal court semi-annual report. John Walsh. I see we have Sam here though. Hey, Sam.
yeah, so this is a regular Wednesday meeting on Tuesday, and Judge Lindgren has commitments on Tuesday.
Yeah, I'm free, so I want
And Sam is coincidentally free on this Tuesday and normally not available on a lot of Wednesdays, so I don't know, Sam, if you want to come up.
You wanna come on up, Sam? Yeah.
I just wanted to show my face because I haven't seen this composition of the council before, so that's nice.
So we just see your name, so.
Yeah. And I try to keep my reports for the prosecution end of things pretty short and sweet. Just overall, I think the court functions really well. I'm really privileged and pleased to be able to continue serving as prosecutor, and it's at times kind of difficult to highlight, the different work we're doing in terms of what's special from one report to the next, but I don't know, it's just, it feels like a very steady ship to me at this point, so I don't have much to add beyond the kind of the numbers that I provided, which I think are all, you know, fairly in line with what's, you know, what I've recorded in previous years, so. Yeah, no, it's a pleasure to work there, so.
So I just wanna, you know, let this council know that one, worked a while ago, a long time ago, was it was costing us over 300, about 300 and plus. And
Judge Taylor time?
so between the new judge and Sam and all the hard work and continuing to crunch numbers and work on, and come up with, you know, a system that's been working quite well. For quite some time, and that's what I hear you say.
We took a pretty serious look at what it would mean to not have a municipal court.
Yeah, that was, we got county coming over.
Had roundtables with the judges and prosecutors. Effectively, it would have doubled the county's court load, which would have resulted in many, many cases not being heard or
Just
tried.
dropped.
It dropped
Yeah.
just due to lack of capacity. And so we figured it out. So that's a great judge, great prosecutor, good.
Obviously, you know, I mean, I'm just gonna say, I don't hear a lot from the courts, you know, and we as counselors and mayors would hear. So you're obviously fair and just, and, you know, I think there's a lot of good things going on there, so.
Glad to hear that, yeah.
Pass that along to Amy too.
I will, yeah.
Judge Ingrid, so.
Yeah. Thank you for, you know, letting me continue to serve. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, any questions on courts? Have any of you guys went and, you can go sit in, Amy will let you come sit in, right? Right at her too if you want. Yeah.
Hire like a temporary bailiff or something like that. How's that working out?
Yeah, I believe we contract with court security. They're there every Thursday. They're great. I mean, it really, from my perspective, brings a level of safety and kind of professionalism that is remarkable. I mean, like the circuit court across the street, at least the last time I was in there, has no metal detector security screening, so in a way, we're, I think, more professional and a safer environment than that. So I'm very
That
grateful.
was the only thing that came to mind, as I remember that was a
Yeah,
recent change.
that was.
That's probably 2 years now.
Yeah, and for a while, the police department was helping us out with that, which was really, you know, I know they're crunched staff wise, so that was really helpful and they were a great bridge, so.
Well, it's nice to not have a problem in your, so thank you.
We're gonna keep trying to keep it that way.
I'll just share, because it's in Judge Lindgren's report, is that Lucy Heil was our defense attorney on contract, and she's no longer with us. So we're bringing aboard, there's actually 3 part-time ones in your tonight's agenda that you'll see.
Yeah.
For acceptance. Same workload. Actually, our caseload seems to be spiking fairly high for
Yeah, it's
some reason.
trending higher right now, and I think kind of within a normal range. It's not anything, you know, totally strange, so, but it's trending higher for sure.
Okay. Stay cool.
Yeah, you guys.
Court is one of the things that is complicated by all the downtown construction right here as well on Thursdays, so.
No. Sitting there trying to write. They literally had a jackhammer in the alleyway here.
Listen, they didn't have any problems, okay? So just leave it alone.
Yeah, John, they never brought it up.
We have enough problems.
All right, let's go ahead on to our next item, which is building division semi-annual report. Michael DeRoya, our building official. How you doing, Michael?
Well, thank you. I'm actually, you know, I'd probably give you a typical response of, well, but I'd like to just, I guess, since you asked, today I'm really pleased because I get to remember and celebrate how blessed I am at 19 years of marriage with my bride.
Hey, thanks.
So I'm doing great today.
I'm glad you remembered. So good job.
That's awesome, Mike.
So yeah, I'll jump right into my report here. Report covers, as you can see, from January to June 2024. And the building division has been comprised of 2.4 full-time employees. We've issued 190 permits in that time. We've done 87 plan reviews and 767 inspections. And that's just within our division. That doesn't count all the support that engineering, public works, and planning also puts into getting permitting going. And 2.4 employees, that's myself, and of course Heidi Davis and Christina Sullivan working down at the permit center for us.
Yes.
So that's kind of what we've been producing over the past 6 months. I'll jump right into intergovernment agreements. Oh, sorry, next slide. Which I didn't have a slide for, apparently, and I apologize to that. Just touching base on the intergovernment agreements that we have with Columbia City. Just to refresh, Columbia City is one where we provide services for them, for their building division. That includes building official services, plan review and inspection services. I guess to talk a little bit on that IGA, it's constructed to work with their permits at 75. We collect 75% of the permit costs that they for their issued permits, and that's for the services that we provide is to support those. Outside of that, we do have an hourly rate that we run for like building official services and anything else that falls outside of a permit.
So they would basically get 25% for administrative for the paperwork.
So they run their permit center, and I do building official, plan review and inspection services. So yeah, all the administrative cost still live there.
Seems reasonable.
Yeah. And that's been the agreement now for a while and it's worked. So over the last 6 months, permits issued for Columbia City were 33. We performed 77 inspections, 9 plan reviews, and we collected to date at least $5,388.10 in revenues. We also have an IGA with Columbia County. Now this IGA is written in a very reciprocal fashion to where we can both utilize services. The reality of how it's worked though is it's like typically if I need a day off for sick, vacation, whatever that might look like, or if we become, if I get too many inspections, then I can rely on them to help us out with that. And so over this period of time, for Columbia County completed 146 inspections. They completed 3 plan reviews for us, and that would be under their plumbing plan reviews. Those are the only plan reviews that we send to them at this point, as required by state law. And we have spent $4,720 in those services. And now we'll get to the slide. I apologize. Move right into the Oregon State Building Codes Division. Just to kind of give an update on that. The Building Codes Division is the state division that we get all of our authority to administer the building codes within St. Helens. And so I'd like to just bring up the up-to-date stuff that they're telling us and give you guys a heads up of what's going on out there statewide. We went through our code cycle. This is kind of an update from the last time we spoke. Went through our code cycle. It is now for the residential code and the plumbing code is now active as of April 1st of this year. And there was some recertification training that needed to be completed and done, and that's all completed. Our e-permitting system is hosted by the state. That's the Oregon e-permitting system. They host, when we signed on, it was like 85 communities, and I think they're up to 100 at this point. But they've just keep adding a few more each year. And admittedly, I hear occasionally people drop off as well. So they had some new rules come into play, which we are fully in compliance with, but that had to do with plan review. We had to be able to accept plans electronically, review them electronically, and issue them electronically for the new rules. We jumped right on that and began implementing our DigiPlan plan review services that we've got now. Part of our agreement with the state, though, to complete those was for them to help offset the cost of the implementation. And that agreement was up to $7,500. We received that payment just this last month. And that was the last piece that to execute on our IGA before what you'll see tonight is a new IGA with the state for our e-permitting and electronic services. The main updates that are going on there have to do with the plan review services and have to do with their own third-party contract. The third-party contract with Excella, who's the company that runs the e-permitting program. I read through the document. It's a lot of legal changes and stuff like that. I have had that sent through our legal department with some changes that you'll see on your agenda tonight. It was all, from my end of it, it seems very deep into the contracts that they deal with. And they just essentially signed those contracts and need to update our IGA with those new contracts. That's kind of the best I can give us. Sorry, what they got. Let's see. And like I said, that'll be on your agenda tonight for you guys to review and pass if that's what you choose to do. So this year, this beginning of this year has been also, a lot of rulemaking has been coming out of the state. And so I wanted to highlight a few of those that are specific to BCD. The first was, in our favor, actually, a change of rules for the specialized plumbing inspector, which was the certification we just recently got this last term. They've actually changed the scope of work, and I'm getting into the details, but they've included now 2-inch water line and less, whereas the language used to say under 2-inch. Well, the nominal size is 2-inch, so that was cutting off a lot of inspections to be able to occur under that certification. And so they've just updated that language. It's a plus for us. We can go out on more inspections, more buildings that fall under that scope. The second is a result of Senate Bill 1537. Just by what the bills says, its intent is to remove construction and regulation barriers to housing production in Oregon. So these rules create a process for BCD to develop and publish permit-ready plans. Sorry. Can you go to the next slide? Sorry, next slide. Oh, is that the? Okay. Sorry, you can go back. Yeah, there's. So the rules create for ready build plans. I'm not sure if anybody in the room is familiar with the term ready build plans. The state dabbled in this a while ago for accessory structures. So you can build a barn or a shed, patio cover, a garage, a carport. They had a few different things out there. And these were statewide plans that essentially somebody could fill out the permit application, bring these plans in, hand them to the building official, and the building official would say, well, look, you're using the state approved plans. Those are good, and out you go. And it worked for homeowners, and then they discontinued it for a while for whatever reasons. And we actually, just so you know, we still have those plans ready and available, published for customers to use, and still do accept them, even though the state discontinued it. There was some issues over how their ability to actually publish plans out statewide wasn't exactly in their laws. So they walked back from it. But we can accept any plans people bring into us, including ones we've published ourselves. And so we've continued that program. This, though, is pressing that program further down the line now to talk about doing single family dwellings, duplexes, and even the conversation has gone down further to like triplexes and multifamily. So they've started the process. They're trying to get information out from jurisdictions to find out what things will work, what things won't. I did sit on a rules advisory committee, just kind of listening to what was being talked about. Of course, some of the biggest things that were brought up have to do with how do we, as developers typically want options. And so a ready build plan doesn't really suit a developer. And so how do you create options in those things? And then, of course, that's going to be a burden down to the local department to say, yes, those options are okay, or no, those options are not okay. And then trying to make them actually usable. Again, going back to the developer model and builder models, they want options. They want things that they can customize and tailor to their customers. So just trying to make a program that'll work that'll actually be used. That's the idea. The ready build plans that they have right now aren't readily used. And now they're not at all because they discontinued the program. But as they go back into trying to bring homes into it, of course, the challenge is if it's to make housing production increase, you got to make it usable. So
like a boring architectural endeavor.
Yeah, it's for that, and it's also the governor's plan that she came up with last year. To make affordable housing more affordable and streamline because the capacity, we're way behind.
How much would that save off of what you normally do for the same?
And that was part of the conversation. There would be a reduction in plan review, because if they're bringing in a ready build plan, then essentially what we're going to do is just confirm that it is in fact not been altered or in some way, or if there are other alterations to the plan that need to be considered, that would be what we would be looking at.
Just go through zoning and all that to be able to.
It would still have to go through planning. It would still go through all the same channels that we needed to go through, but the plan review time could be reduced just because of its simplicity. And I think that's part of their effort too, is to make it so that it gets through a little bit more without delay.
Yes, she was trying to be as friendly as she could to builders. She didn't come to the cities to talk to them, and then now it sounds like we're having some input at the table.
And they will, they did say as part of those rules, you know, any plan that comes out, there is a period of time at which, just like any kind of public comment period, right? The state will put it out to the jurisdictions, to the stakeholders. There's gonna be a feedback or comment period on that plan. And then. So the last the last one I wanted to bring up was, the statewide mechanical minor label inspection program. This one began July 1st of this year. They started a pilot program a couple of years ago. This is similar to our electrical and plumbing minor label programs, where a contractor can get basically a book of 10 permits. And as they're out in the field, they can self-issue these permits, register them, and then a random selection of the lot. One inspection's done, and as long as everything's good, they continue through that minor label program. And it's for, again, it's for minor alterations that are occurring. So they've implemented this now for the mechanical side of our code. And it's going to allow for the simple, pulling out a unit, replacing for like, no alterations. It's going to allow for that. It even allows for some commercial replacement without any plan review. And so it'll allow for some minor work to be completed and inspected. Several, like I said, several other codes already are using this.
I mean, it
The
really
biggest
helps.
thing that it's gonna
It really helps you guys out though, because you have to follow state law sometimes. You're like, well, I need to draw that up.
Yeah, there are parts of it. I'm getting more familiar with the rule as it's come out. There are parts of the commercial side I get a little bit cautious about, and then some of the concerns I have to do with more of the condensation removal from equipment. That's something new that contractors are still finding their systems to get through there. So it's something we've had to watch a little bit closer, I guess, in terms of trying to prevent condensation from occurring inside the building, or condensation leaks occurring inside the building. But I'm in favor of this. I think this is a good program. It's worked really well for the electrical and really well for the plumbing. And yeah, there's many times where I can spend more time explaining to you what I'm inspecting on a push-pull furnace than what I actually have to inspect. And so these guys really know what they're doing when they're pulling a unit out and putting a unit in. So there's really, it's a good thing that this minor label program goes into play. So
Doing the work with a permit rather than doing it.
Yeah.
Trying to go,
well, yes, that's it.
to get your money.
Well, this is through the state. So the state, the only revenue that we would ever receive from the minor label program is if the lot that they pull from has one of our addresses on it. And then they call us, we go perform the inspection, and we send them a bill.
Yeah.
All right, next slide, please. Thank you. All right. Some of the projects around town. So the high school renovation, phase 1 has been significantly complete, let's put it that way. They are operating under a temporary certificate of occupancy, although it's summertime, so not much occupancy going on right now. But this is building A, which included the admin areas, drama, sports departments, and the new addition, which included the new science labs, cafeteria, and kitchen. And building B is currently in the demolition phase. And there's just a couple of photos of the finishes. If you're wondering why I take a picture of the core of a door, there is what you're looking at. That is a 2-hour fire rated door before the fire rated relight has been installed. And so that was just one of those unique times where you get to see the inside of the core of a fire rated door. So it's the stuff I like to see.
You can appreciate that.
I can, yeah. Next slide, please. John Gum School. The finishes are being completed. They've really completed most of the work on the interior of the building. With exception to the elevator is still kind of the last piece that they're working
Well, I
on.
heard about
So-
the elevator. I went to the county dinner and Casey Garrett called us out about the elevator. He's like, ours?
Oh,
That's River here.
Oh, that's not
different
elevator.
project.
Okay, multiple elevators. Okay.
This one is at the John Gum School, and they're still working on getting that one. We have received permits for their initial permits were not going to finish out the basement. They left that work out of the scope. And they've actually turned in TI permits now to finish out the scope, or to finish out those TI spaces in the bottom. And it's mostly, I believe, gonna what did I say? I wanted to say storage, but that was the original one. Now I'm getting crossed up on another plan. For the John Gum to finish out the basement area. I know one of the areas is in support of the museum, so it's gonna be museum storage. And I believe there was, now I'm skipping my mind is. There, I apologize.
That was what I heard. I don't know if that's correct still or not.
I don't know if they've solidified that, but that was probation offices.
That might have been what it was, juvenile?
That was a few months ago, so it might have changed. but-
They're in the basement over here right now.
Yes,
It's like, yes, when Ryan's a juvenile probation officer.
Yes.
okay.
Yes.
It's like. Big brewery. Main level is open except for the kitchen, but the kitchen is currently being updated. We've gotten some mechanical permits in for them to reinstall some equipment and install some new equipment. So looking forward to that one. Next slide, please. 12th Street. Been out there doing final inspections over the past few weeks, and so well on their way to getting the job complete.
Mr. Hubbard, tear down that fence.
That is a bit, that's an older photo. That is an older photo.
Well, since then.
Yeah. That is a bit of. Next, Sand Island. So this project is kind of slowed down, if not stopped, due to some lack of permitting. And so I know that they are working with the county. Spoke with the county electrical inspector, and they are in at least talks and working with the county to get all their permitting in place so that they can start work back up again. The water and sewer infrastructure, last time I was here, talked about it, though. They were talking about water and sewer infrastructure on the island, and specifically for my purview was gonna be inside those cabins. That has all been kind of backed off and walked back, and the cabins are being built, with the exception to the electric portion, per plan. So. Next slide, American Mart. It's a new store that just opened. They are open with a temporary occupancy. That is just while the TI spaces basically on the Columbia Boulevard side are getting cleaned out and left empty as they need to be. And so they're kind of wrapping up the last little bits of that. You may have seen some storefront work going on out front there as well. And so kind of anticipate them calling in for their final inspection and getting that closed out here very shortly. Next slide. Fast Lube. They are open under a temporary occupancy as well. There's just one last piece to their project that they're working on with the Dairy Queen, which is the Dairy Queen property is adjacent to them. And they have a shared access to the right of way that they need to get built. And so they are still working through the details of getting that constructed, but they are.
That makes sense. And then there's a parcel in between.
There is, on the other side, there's an empty parcel between them and the Burger King.
Yes, on both sides, right?
The one on the northern side
Dairy
is Dairy Queen, and it is empty currently, but they've got plans in and are working through that.
Makes sense when you pull up into Burger King and you see the barricade there. That's the
Yes.
access you're talking about.
Sorry, I should have been more specific. Pedestrian access. This would just be a pedestrian access. Yeah.
Yep.
Next slide, please. Residential. So up at Elk Ridge, there's 3 houses there. I'm again just kind of waiting for the phone call for final on those. I was actually up there today looking at some of the another site that's up there and drove by them and again kind of figure those will be calling in for final here any day. We have the 2nd Street duplexes are completed. 6th Street duplexes are completed and the Oh, sorry, that was it. And next slide, please. Burger King. That one is complete, 100%. Last time we were here, they were under a temp occupancy. That is a pedestrian connection that similar to one that Fast Loop needs to build as well. So, and that was, it's almost identical conditions. They were opened up under a temporary occupancy while they were working out the details of getting this pedestrian connection down to the right of way. And it's the same conditions with Fast Loop. Next slide. Broadleaf Harbor is complete. Very glad to say that. And I think they actually had a
Was today.
house today.
Yes, they were asking for attendance, but we had our meeting today and. Just
I mean, yeah, I represented the city today and it was
Good job, John.
lots of positive things to say about the building and planning and city staff generally and the council support. Really appreciative.
So, yeah, that one is complete. Next slide. And Columbia Hills Retirement Home is back occupied and is complete. Recall that was the one that encountered a fire a few years back. Yeah, that one is back together.
Any questions for Michael? No.
Going into, can I talk a little bit about what's coming up?
Absolutely, yeah.
So just coming up in the next half of the 2024, I'm finally getting some time where I can commit to code changes. We have talked about this, or I have mentioned this a lot, but I finally am spending, getting to be able to commit some time weekly to getting on that. And so, breaking it down basically into 3 sections. I'm going to be working on the building code first, which is 15.04 of our municipal code. Then I'll be working on the fire code after that. That's 1508. And then the moorage and floating structures code of 1506 and the code for abatement of dangerous structures, which is 1520. I would love to try to have something, back to you guys at least to, for my next report, to at least present to you guys to start that conversation of what that looks like is, if there's any recommendations that need to be made or conversations to be had about what to put in the code, if there's things you guys are hearing out there from constituents, I want to make sure to get that, because I don't want to put something together in, in a vacuum to where it's just what I think is appropriate. I have a lot of ideas, things that we need to update based on the new laws and new rules that are out from the state, and just updating it to, be in today's language and with today's technologies. But there's also, I know things that other ideas people might have. And so I guess I would open it up to wanting to be able to present something and hear some feedback from you guys on that. And that's really all I have to talk about in the future. It's just working on code change.
Yeah, definitely need to get that updated.
Question, could you forward that we made plans for the code that's coming up to the planning commission?
Oh, yeah.
So they would have an idea.
I was gonna think the planning commission should also maybe.
Planning commission should be involved in that too.
Agreed. Yeah. And I actually, I have already, just so you know, Jacob and I have sat down and I will forward that for sure. But I agree with you, the planning department and all that backs and supports it up, including the commission, need to be aware of it because, yeah, there's going to be, especially during those times of input, we need to make sure that voices are heard, not just from building code standpoint, but from our architectural codes and development codes as
We're
well.
getting more and more focused on design now, which is so important for the community, I think. And we got plenty of builders around that have their cookie cutters. We've seen, you've done those. And so that's already happening, but for something to go right through your office and people don't even know about it, it'd be good to give them a heads up.
I think especially that abatement one, I think they might have some feedback.
That you just have to have a code reference in order to do your job as building official, so.
Yeah, so the state codes, we have a rule that requires us to cite a section of code that we're trying to apply.
You're really kind of fall under, Michael's his position is falls under the police department in a sense. Realistically, by code, he can go out and cite people for a nuisance property.
For us, he's the police officer, the
Yeah,
builders.
I mean, He can.
He has.
He absolutely has that
License
authority.
police officer for
He has
injury.
that authority. I took him out on the boat, 'cause there's this guy building this whatever, I don't know, it looked like a houseboat, or looked like he's building a house on the river. Michael asked him questions and the guy says, I'm gonna put a motor on it. Michael goes, I don't know. I don't know that there's any code about a boat built like that.
It's an idea.
It was so funny though.
No, not a
It
house.
was so funny though, because he's like, well, yeah, you can't be doing that. And then when the guy said, I'm gonna have a motor on the back, Michael's like, That's funny. It was just hilarious. I thought it was funny.
It's not there now.
Yes, yes. He
He took his
disassembled-
motor and went down the river.
No, he disassembled it and actually, every piece of it. And, I think even the floats have been moved now, so. Yep, so that's good.
I applaud you on wanting to bring it, open to not just saying, okay, this is something I'm gonna do and, bringing it to everyone to have a voice in it and, be open to feedback. Thank you for doing that.
Congratulations on your anniversary.
Thank you very much.
You have a pretty cool wife.
What's that?
You have a pretty cool
Oh,
wife.
yes, yes. I love her. All right. Any other questions? Have a good afternoon. Take care.
Okay. In a conversation that's probably been needing to happen for quite some time, this next one. Discussion regarding Lumen's refusal to cooperate with downtown construction projects.
Skip
Public
one.
Works Director, did I? Oh, okay, well, I'm going on to First Street. Utilities, but is Sharon gonna be available for this one? Is she coming down? Or do you wanna go to the next one?
We can go on both. I'm gonna manage both. Unfortunately, she was not feeling good this morning. So I told her to stay at home. I believe she's at Zoom in case we have any questions.
If anybody's wondering, this is our Public Works Director, Mohammed Zaire. And he's gonna be on our next two items of discussion, so.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good afternoon, City Council. May I answer a quick question for Mr. Preheim? He asked about the intersection earlier to save you the time and the headache of. So on the intersection, Mr. Preheim, by Cowlitz and First Street, it will be a two-lane street. It's a 22-foot wide that will accommodate 11 feet each direction. So you will have two cars, both direction, 11 feet each. I know it looks, the bulb out are designed on purpose as a traffic calming devices to slow traffic on the intersection. That's why they extend a little bit longer than the typical ones. But those are by design. However, it will accommodate all emergency vehicles at 2 speed. So hopefully this puts your minds at ease.
He's very at ease now. Thank you.
Yeah. No, it's definitely, when you go look at it, it's not complete. So they had to dig a little bit farther because of the underground utilities and other challenges underground. So, but once they finish it, it will reduce it.
And
For now, it looks really tight. I get them.
And I hate to come back to that earlier public testimony about Council Topaz, because you oversee those departments too, or we're not. Steve Topaz, that a lot of what was being said there was simply not true. I mean, I don't know where he's coming up with those numbers. It's saying, I'm talking about a leach A system that was created by Cascade Tissue is leaking into McNulty Creek, which has a leach A system, which was created by a guy named Joe Kovich, Columbia City, still lives there in 91. And it has a leach A system with a 6-inch pipe that comes down side road and feeds into our sewer. All the employees know that. And he said there was sewer and pulp leach. I mean,
We just had a meeting actually with DEQ last week.
Thank
We
you.
had a public hearing with them because we are renewing our MPDS, and I'm sure, believe me, if there is any issues like that.
The city of St. Helens is in full compliance with the,
100%.
Yes.
that's all we need to.
You don't have- Trust me, there will be.
Just wanted you to give an update on that.
Certainly, there is some misinformation that travels, misinterpreted, and people, take it to heart. Perhaps they want to do the right thing. However, it's not to our knowledge that there is any of that
Yes,
existing.
yes,
I guarantee you DEQ will be knocking tomorrow if that's.
yes, yes. All right, sorry, now go ahead.
No problem. Any other questions?
I'm just gonna step down here for a second. Go then.
Please. Okay, special procurement for underground utilities for the electrical services, special procurement. So I thought, in addition to just, request this specific request on the special procurement, we'll give you guys an update on overall project where we stand today. First, we'll explain what is special procurement. We'll talk about the project, waterfront status, so where we are today. It's been going for 2+ years now. We'll talk a little bit about the procurement timeline for the electrical services. Some of the price negotiations, how we got here, and the finding of the special procurement, cause of that. And finally, what is our staff recommendation for the evening session? So special procurement are allowable by the state law. There is an ORS that we reference here that specifically talk about when and how and why would you do a special procurement. The main two purposes, obviously, number one is to stay compliance with the bidding process, which we have recently been audited, and we passed that because we do a great job following all the bidding procedures and the rules. However, sometimes you get into a small specific situations such as the underground utilities where that for the cost of that services, it exceeds a typical procurement process, and this is why we are approaching this on the special procurement. A second one, it has to substantially show that there is a major cost saving by following the approach of special procurement. But unless you can provide the state with those two main points, cost saving and its fair process, then it will not be approved by the state of Oregon ORS. On the waterfront process, I'll give you a little bit where we are today. So 2+ years in the project now, we are at 70% completion. This is a very significant, just to let everybody know, we are close to the finish line with less than 5 months to go. We are still on target, on budget, on schedule for the December finish line. We have done massive improvement already that has been underground for the most part, and most recently we will start the surface working. So we put all the sewer pump stations that you've seen in the Plymouth that has been completely and fully built and commissioned. All the water mains, all the sewer mains, storm drains. If you haven't seen the bluff trail, it's already constructed. It's really, really nice. So that would lead you all the way. It's in the construction zone, so a lot of folks haven't had the chance to go back and forth, but it's pretty much completed. And also the 12th stairs, they are pretty much 90% completed, and they are about to pour the rest of the stairs, which gonna connect to the intersection on that side. It looks really nice. Now you can start see some of these physical appearance, pleasing features on the project on board.
Yeah, I really like the inlay of the basalt into the sidewalks.
Yes, yes. And as we go through, we have discovered some challenges, I think, where the basalt column, the cap was not the right color on the specs. Thanks to Jenny, she really brought this up, and we ended up getting the contractor to bring us the actual sample that we talked about. It was a little different. Some of these challenges that, we ran through could cause delays, but we've been handling those in the back end. And again, we have a wonderful, I would call superstar team that is really making this project a very successful one, which is very unique for the demanding technical challenges that we face on this. So what's coming up in the next 5 months? Basically, we are gonna go work on the streets, Strand Street improvement, as you've seen in front of City Hall. This whole space has been dug up now, and we are preparing for paving coming up here very soon in the next 3 weeks or so. The Cowles Circle, that is gonna be redone because the concrete work that was not up to the city standards. So we have made sure that gets redone and complete from A to Z to make sure it's 100% perfect circle. This is a center point of the entire project, so that is in the works. We will be completing all the intersection improvements. In fact, Landis & Landis, who has been a wonderful, wonderful contractor, has already finished all their work on the intersection. Very impressive. I can tell you, it's hard for me to say very impressive, but they definitely have came above and beyond the call of duty, and what they've done in that intersection has been fantastic.
I just want to remind people that you put a halt on that because of the trench was originally quoted for a huge price. We said, no, wait a minute.
Correct. And
that's what triggered that. That's why we had the emergency procurement too.
Correct. We mentioned this here. Well,
okay.
Good memory, Mr. Mayor, because yes, there was that first piece of, it's a very complicated project. That's what I say. There's multiple projects within the waterfront. Sometimes folks, they reference those as one, but they're a separate project. The intersection is one, R65, and then the P 525, different, but they're intertwined when it comes. And there is, all the efficiency we're trying to find in the phases and how to work all this together at the same time to continue finishing on that. Yeah, and last but not least, what's supposed and we will hope to get done is the power telecommunication switch and underground utilities. So to give you also a little bit of the electrical services and the procurement timeline. So if we go to the next slides, we started this process back in October 2022. This is when we initially went out to bid for the electrical underground utilities. And with that proposal that we put out, we only received one proposal. However, that was way overpriced to our technical expertise, and also it was not done to the city standard. So we have completely rejected that initial proposal, right? It would not serve us well. It was not clear. So we went back to the drawing board, and in around February, we can go back to one slide. So we just showed the council the timeline. Yeah, move forward one more. Yeah, there you go. Thank you. Oh, I might have skipped. Yes, so the problem, can you go one back, please? Sorry, the problem is, this is the problem. Why are we doing this? Before we can take all those telecommunication services underground, we have to get rid of the poles. If you see those electrical poles, they're extremely complex. You have several communication, electrical, that goes between Comcast, Lumen, PUD, volts, underground wiring, fiber. We have to plan and design all that first. Then once we design all that, we have to have the contractors come in and pull their stuff from the pole. There is a lot of rules around those, right? And before you can pull communication out, you have to have a execution plan. Otherwise, you'll disconnect customers from services. So how do you manage all that simultaneously with everything else that's coming? Too many chefs in the kitchen, that's a good example, and it is really complex, super quick. So that's the major problem, and we want to secure a good underground utility process to get this done. So on the next slides, as we said, in October 22, we started with the bidding process. We had the first initial bid that was not great, so we went back to the drawing board and we connected with the OTAC, the design firm that works on our street utility intersection, and we have brought in a very comprehensive electrical design for the entire project. So in July 23, we put this back out for bid. Normal process, not the special procurement. And unfortunately, believe it or not, we had 0 bids on that. The project is, I think, scared a lot of people. Well, it's really complex. A lot of the contractors there not comfortable doing it. We didn't have the right skill set, so we end up going back. What can we do to solve this problem now? Because it could have a major impact on the project. We went back and separated those design electrical services into 2 projects. And this is where we succeeded with separating them out. The intersection is one because we have a pole there and that has to go by the known place. And then the rest of the city. And now we were able to kind of clearly define those channels, the JUT, the joint utility trench, and everything else follows that. And with that solution, that's what triggered the special procurement. So we end up basically have to go through those specific channels because now we have to bid this project. We have 5 months to go. What do you do? Going through the normal procurement process, we will be way beyond the schedule, massive financial responsibility on the city, on the contractor, and of course, the project is not gonna be done. Therefore, that's why we are.
The timeline, the end line, the end game.
And it's actually a great, fortunately that the state of Oregon have these options, right? If we don't have these options, we're pretty much stuck. But they give you an avenue for specific cases where if we are in a specific timeline with specific cases that we meet those circumstances and conditions, we are able to pursue other ways of continuing the project. And that's where the special.
Because the original bid you had, this was a savings of over $300,000.
Yes, we'll get to that next. Yeah, the next slide.
I have not looked at his presentation.
Price negotiation.
I promise you.
So price negotiation, this is where I think it's a very important slides that we are very, very, very proud about this, right? Let me go take you back in time, that October 2022, when we started the project. The bid for this electrical service work came almost $1 million. That's how much, when we saw that, like, wow, that's way too much. That's a lot more, but that's the risk the contractor assumed, right? Says, hey, nobody's gonna do this. We had 0 bids, only one. And with having one only, they say, you know what? We'll do it for $1 million. And that's kind of like very bad situation we are left in. We either agree to pay the $1 million and move on and they will assume all the rest, or we become creative and put the work and figure this out because this is just not right. It doesn't feel. We know it doesn't cost $1 million. How much less? We didn't know. Once we got the design, we separated the project. We received a bid, was again for almost 871,000, which is still close to $1 million. So we put our superhero hat, and I think we got the team here from our engineering and our planning, and we sat down, we talked these numbers really deep. And we separated all the bid items ourselves. We looked at it from our engineering standpoint. And we went back and see where can we be creative? Where can we be smart? And where can we negotiate hard with the contractor? Because we still have a good solid ground that we can factually agree. Fast forward, I think we came with a wonderful, wonderful proposal. In fact, we sat down and we looked at the numbers and we have over $250,000, $260,000 difference that we came up with. And now how do we take that and go fight, right? To get that number versus contractors say, well, we're assuming all the rest. All this took a lot of great efforts from our team. I can tell you with a lot of confidence and proud of this, our team, Alex, Sharon, Jenny, worked a lot of areas when it comes to funding. Because Jenny and John worked on really getting all this great funding from other resources to cover this cost. But also our team used their specifically engineering skills to look down at the excavation cost, look at the equipment mobilization, look at all the risk factors that they mentioned in their proposal. Then fast forward, not to go on the weeds, we reduced and we proposed this to the contractor, and then we were able to reduce it by 31% to $600,000, which we exactly thought what the project could cost from day one, 3 years ago.
But that was the project before it was split. So what happened? You split it.
This is after
What
it.
happened with the other part?
This is for everything,
So this is for everything. So
everything A to Z.
it's originally everything, it's split, and then everything got put back into this bid.
And the bid came almost $1 million for everything before we split and after we split.
Okay.
So that did not change. We have spent.
I understand now. I'm like, I don't understand the savings.
know,
of
no.
the Project, so
The
that's why
overall,
there's.
the underground utilities doesn't stop. There is services that goes to businesses, residents, right?
Yes.
It has been, again, Mr. Mayor and City Council, it's been over a year of very rough negotiation. This was not an overnight success and it was not an over a month. It's been a discussion and back and forth for over a year. While we're trying to contain and keep the project moving forward, we're dealing with these issues behind the scene. But again, it doesn't settle right unless we really do our job with the taxpayers' money, right? Can we afford the $1 million? Yeah, we could have just agreed and paid that, but you know how we work in public works. We don't accept that. We just gotta try until we get to a level that we believe is right to do by the city. So yeah, I take this as a massive success and we are very proud of it. And again, many thanks to our team.
Good job.
Our team
And you need
couldn't
to
do it
give-
without him.
You need to give yourself some credit too. I know you're on the phone and doing a lot of tirelessly work too.
Yeah, a little bit heart attack along the way. It's okay. It's a team effort. That's we are a we, it's not an I. And the team definitely, as you already know, leadership is really important to motivate, to get the team to work and how can we make this relationship work? And so far it has been fantastic. So finding on the special procurements. So with that said, basically based on those, we have met the clause for the state of Oregon. Number one, the substantial cost saving, as we talked about. This is over $260,000 saving, which we have run by the state and they 100% supported that. And also the bidding process. Now that where we are, we have followed every single step that to meet the special procurement funding based on our project circumstances, and that has been supported and approved from that end. So we are basically doing everything by the book and better. And what would the staff recommendation for this project? Basically, we put this in the work session. We would like the council basically to approve our recommendation so we can move forward with the underground, and that will be coming underway in the next 2 weeks, actually. Because Landis and Landis already finished. The funding is already there. Again, thank you, Jenny. She did a wonderful job. We unfortunately could not bring this sheet of the state because it's going through minor approvals now, but we do have the funding beyond what the actual ask is. So it's in the budget already, and it's not something we're asking for or extra money or anything. It's already
So continuing on with the undergrounding.
basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, in order to be able to use these funds, we had to go through a special procurement. With that said, that covers this specific. Any questions? I'm happy to answer on the intersection underground utilities.
So now people know that MEI will return back to there and then that will be completed.
Correct. And let me tell you, Mr. Mayor, this has been a wonderful endeavor, and I gotta also shout out for MEI for being patient with us and being able to work on this extremely unorthodox way of working such a complex project. Because, you know, a lot of folks can say, hey, you figured that out, and if MEI didn't really want to work this, then we're in a pickle, back to a normal procurement, and then that delays and could. But having them been here for 2 years, I think it's the best route forward, and they are willing to work with us and been very patient. And you've known they had a lot of turnover and challenges on their end.
Yeah. And they want to see a finish line in a good.
They want to see the finish line. They're really putting their absolute effort. I speak with their top leadership regularly and we check in every week on this project. Yeah, it has been a wonderful event, but to meet those deadlines by the end of the year, it's nothing short of a miracle in my eyes in project management.
All right.
Yeah, definitely a sprint, and Danny can probably speak to the financial aspects of the Land Conservation Water Fund kind of stepping up and.
Yeah, I won't be at the regular session tonight, so just if there were any budget questions, we also have a really exciting amendment to one of our grants for the Riverwalk. I was hoping to have it on your regular session at the same time as this. There's just some fine tuning, but our Land and Water Conservation Fund was originally $500,000 towards the Riverwalk. We've negotiated an additional $684,000 to the grant.
Additional?
An additional.
Did I hear you right?
So more than double.
Wow.
We knew that there was an amendment coming. It's partially their fault that this project has been delayed. We were awarded the grant in 2020. As you know, COVID happened, escalation costs happened, and then they also put Buy America compliance into our grant contract
They did.
after the fact. So they felt obligated to increase our award. We didn't know it was gonna be by this much, but we pushed and said, look, we've got our contracts already. This is how much costs have escalated. Give us whatever you can. And our coordinator is amazing and was able to increase our award by that much. So we're gonna get over 1.1 million just from this grant alone, plus our other 3 grants. So it's helping to supplement the costs for undergrounding. It's all coming from the same urban renewal and loan buckets.
Yeah.
It's meaning that we can shift our money and utilize city resources even more effectively.
Jenny, will this be like a third paid for by grant for this phase? Are we close to that? I mean,
So we've got Oregon Parks and Recreation Local Government Grant, 380,000. We've got the Land and Water Conservation Fund for just under 1.2 million. That'll be the amended amount. And then we've got a Travel Oregon grant for 100,000. And then we've also got our park system development charges, which were budgeted for years ago. So those are all things that can only really be used on this project. It brings our percentage of the cost for construction of the Riverwalk virtually funded entirely by grants. So it's huge. I was hoping to be able to have the physical amendment in front of you tonight. But interestingly, the contract before you tonight is 600,000. Our increased grant award is 680,000. So it's virtually.
I don't think a lot of citizens were hearing that. Some people who give testimony were like, why are you going with the park? Why you can't spend the money? We're like, we got grants and this has to get through. We have to approve this because I knew at the time, you realize it was that much. So that's awesome.
That is, so spread the word,
Stage back?
spread the word.
Sooner than later, we will figure that out.
Spread the word
Need
that
it.
virtually most of the project is paid for by grants, so spread the
That's
word.
awesome, Jenny. Thank you.
Yes.
We are very fortunate, Mr. Mayor and City Council, honestly, just from experience being around the world and other places in my career. What we have accomplished in the city in the last 4 years, at least grant wise, I've never seen this anywhere. Some other places struggle to bring 100,000 in grant. The city has brought in millions. In my time, I can tell you in easily over $5 million in the last 4 years between multitude of projects, whether it's parks or planning or, recreation or that has been massive. Design, we have $2.5 million for the basins. This is massive. 2.5.
Found a designated grant writer.
Yeah, so, and this is, again,
It's a big deal.
every city typically have a specific full-time job, the person that, but here we take pride. We all have full-time jobs doing multiple function, wear a lot of hats, but we're not afraid, to go look for a grant, look for an application. We have a new.
I love watching the process too. It's like they get together, they start, Jenny's drawing, John's looking at it, reviewing, Rachel was reviewing, you were like, oh, we need this, Sharon. I mean, it
It's a
was
great
back and
team effort.
forth. Doesn't meet all the criteria. Am I looking at this right? That's
It pays off.
somebody says add this and you're like, oh, that's a great idea. So it's kind of a team effort, really, what I've seen for the years.
Or the deadline's tomorrow.
That too.
Together.
We did that.
We did that and it's turning out really
For
well.
Bonaventure, yes.
Yeah, and to give a lot of credit to also our leadership team and our city administrator, this work, it comes from trust. Our ability to do our job, and our city administrator does really trust us and give us all the support that we need to do our jobs. And we made mistakes along the line, but the support from all of you is what makes us successful. Without your support, again, I can tell you this wouldn't have happened, but we value that, and I think we take it and we run with it, and you've seen the results, fantastic.
Can't wait to put this all together at the end with a video, you guys.
Soon, very soon.
Yes. Yep.
December is around the corner.
We are making videos of the one
Yes.
regular flyovers so we can show that time lapse progress.
Okay, any other questions on that one? We're gonna talk about the Lumen.
Now it's a bad news.
No, it's not. It's not. How we have to go about sometimes.
This has been an ongoing battle. It's no short of a battle, like almost physical battle. It's been rough for over 2.5 years. We've been dealing, and you've heard and you've seen the complexity of this project. Now, fast forward all the rough stuff. We are at an inflection point with the JUT, the joint utility trenching that we are about to start, where we need the underground utilities to move their lines underground so we can have a cutoff plan so we can move on with the project. If that doesn't get done, that creates a lot of bottlenecks, financial burden, risk, and many other issues, disconnect of service. Long story short, we've been working with all the communication step by step. We have followed the process to the T. We have brought all the communication on many occasions. We have monthly utility meetings. We have discussions. We have meeting minutes. We have arguments. We have sent letters. Everybody on this JUT communication channels have done their part, and it wasn't easy, but we did get Comcast, FatBeam, LS Network, PUD, great partners. They all understood how important is this to the city, and we have made progress, and everybody pretty much 90% done their job to the T. What are we faced with today? So Lumen is the last one on the pole. What does that mean in the engineering world? The last person have their communication on the pole are the one that go last, and they have to take the pole with them, right? We have everybody ready to go and execute except Lumen. Lumen have been fighting and arguing with the city for the last 2 years that this is a beautification project. We're not doing anything. You have to pay us to do this. And we have explained this 1 million+ times. This is not a beautification process. This is a public works / capital improvement project, magnitude of $17 million. This is not a beautification. So they're trying to basically escape from their responsibility to do their job. back and forth, up and down, right and left, and dragged us through so much and delayed the project and continue to delay. So we gave them warning letters. We send them letters, hey, you have 2 months to move your stuff, and if you don't move it, we're gonna have to shut off your service and we're gonna have to figure this out. That will eliminate your problem. Now, number one, Lumen doesn't have a franchise agreement with the city, the only entity. This is bad. That means they have no rights actually for none of the stuff they have here. We can pull them out and move on if we really want to pull that. However, we're trying to be a good neighbor. We tried the diplomatic way. We tried to talk to their superiors. And then we got some traction in the last couple months. And finally, they are moving on a speed of 1 mile an hour. However, we are getting some traction, but it's not, we are at, again, inflection point. We don't have a lot of time. We have 2 months where we need to get all this stuff moved and figured out. And they still dragging their feet. So, which is the genesis of this resolution. This was the very last step from our end that we can do to really get them to engage and to move their stuff. And without the step, they're gonna continue to really drag their feet and they're not doing their job. Now, we have investigated this further, and Sharon went as far as reaching out. There was a case in the different city here in Oregon, Newburgh, where they run to exactly the same problem. So we initiated calls. We spoke to their public works, city management, and they said, what you guys do? How did you work this problem? Because we are struggling here and we're at a time we cannot afford more of this delay, right? And they're not listening. We're getting snippets, right? Breadcrumbs, okay, we're gonna do this, and then they disappear. They come back. We need this and disappear. That's not gonna work. We cannot afford that now. So the city of Newburgh, they have basically put a resolution out, and as soon as that one from the city council is moved and shaped immediately. And this is what I call a last resort. We got them to really move a little bit, but they're still not on a point where we can rely on them doing their job. And that's why we're asking here to have a resolution.
Just so you know, I was in on that conversation, happened to walk up and Mohammed offered, said, this is my personal cell number. Call me
24/7.
anytime. They are talking, but this resolution kind of gives us a little, says that, hey, get your pipes in the ground. And, but he did, you know, they've been receptive and then backed off a number of times.
Yes, and if I believe Sharon is on the,
And Sharon was in on that conversation too.
yeah, she can give you a little bit more background on the resolution and, you know, why and where and what have we done? Really, we exhausted all our resources at this.
Is Sharon zoomed in?
I'm moving her to panelist, just a second.
No, internet service?
They do, and their service is not much, actually. We were surprised. So initially we told them, okay, give us your services so we can figure this out. We're trying to work it out any way we can. We looked at Melito, and then they said, well, no, we cannot give you our service because it's proprietary.
Oh.
Like, you better, you're joking. They said, no, and they dragged us for another month. The services are 5 or 6, they're not much, but.
Hey Sharon, would you like to add to what Mohammed was saying a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, Mohammed covered it pretty much what's going on. We've been trying to get them out here for literally the last 2 years. They're the only franchise utility that has never been out here on the job. They've just not been willing to work with us. Even at the intersection, they refused to bring their vaults or conduit, so we had to pay Landis and Landis extra money to go get a vault that would work all the way down in, I think, Salem, and bring it up and put in Schedule 40 for their pipes. So it's just been a real challenge working with them. And like Mohammed said, I reached out to Marion County is one of the counties also that was working with them. They had some serious issues with them. The county commissioners had to pass a resolution type order to basically order them to get that done. And even when they did that order, the public works project manager said it was still a fight. He said they came out, but he said it was pretty much a fight the entire time to get them to continue doing the work. So we expect that going in. We just hope that this resolution will give us a little bit more push and kind of push them in the right direction and help us to get this done.
Well, you think with being a provider and not having a franchise agreement with the city, you would be more than willing to try to say, hey, we'll gladly pay for all our pipe and all our vaults and we'll have somebody down there immediately and.
I am lost.
Please don't charge us a franchise fee, even though they're not, maybe not even serving this area really. They have the ability to.
They do, like Mohammed said, they keep referring to this public improvement project as a beautification project. That's a very legal term that they keep using. In the state of Oregon, if it was a beautification project, then the city would have to pay them to move their utilities, but it's not
nothing about what we're doing that is beautiful.
Yeah, so we've explained that to them like
I
agree. I agree.
Yeah, so we've explained to them it's we're putting in water and sewer and we're fixing the streets. It's not a beautification project. They keep using that term over and over again. I do think that they will, especially with this resolution, I think they will comply and they will start to work with us on it though. So.
And I was very honest with them. I told them, look, we don't want to go this route. Work with us, and we're still trying to find creative way to get this done. And again, it falls on deaf ears. We sent important communication. We hear back 2 weeks later. Oh, sorry, I was on vacation, and they know the critical timeline we have. And they're the only one holding up the entire project now. Without that,
Have we referred to our city attorney with this?
we have, yeah, Sharon have made several contact and we have spoke about this and we have sent in official letters.
Yeah, and the resolution was written by Jordan Ramus. So
It's written by Jordan Ricks.
yes, it is. Mm-hmm.
They exhausted.
So that's checking.
All the
all of our
dots and the
bases.
Ts, yeah.
Any other questions for Mohammed or Sharon on this subject? All right, Sharon, we hope you feel better.
Thank you so much. Sorry I couldn't be there.
All right. Have a good day. All right, Mohammed, thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Yep, and we're gonna go ahead and take our break before we get into John's report. So we'll take a 10-minute break, then we'll come back to John's report, and then after that, we'll be going into a executive session under ORS 1926602E and H real property. E is real property transaction and H is consulting with legal counsel. So 10-minute recess.
know what it is, but it's like right behind my eyeball.
Fish on your shoe. Yeah, those are-
Okay, welcome back. The time is 4:10. And so go ahead and go on to our next agenda. Is the report from our city administrator, John Walsh.
Thank you, Mayor.
Yep.
On the break, Counselor Cindy was talking about, they're surviving and thriving, and I've talked about that over the years about communities that are just somewhere in that continuum of, are we just surviving, barely getting by, or are we kind of thriving and kind of moving on to those higher levels of having our bases covered and just, doing great things. And we got a lot of things on that continuum. If you just mapped out all the projects that would look different for different things. But
Yes.
the waterfront being a good one, and some other things, not so far, and more than other surviving end of it. So I guess I'll start off my report by skate machines playing at 13 nights this week at the park. I'll be there
You are the tourist
dragging
director
cord
right
and
now?
getting vendors satisfied, and actually the first week was pretty good, and made it all right, little distraction from other duties, but it's making it happen until we get this new events contractor on board. There's been just a whole lot of behind the scenes negotiating back and forth about the contract, the contractor, and other matters related to the wrap up with E2C. But a lot of motion right there, even as late as 10 minutes before the work session started right here. I was on the phone with our attorneys, trading contracts back and forth with Treadway. And so we're really very close, but it's not going to be close enough for today. There's one more round that has to go back to Treadways and back to us. So we're contemplating a special meeting. August 7th is just too far away. There's too much time slipping by.
As soon as it's ready, special meeting.
Yeah, and that's that, and then also on the same arena, Project Arcadia has been lots of activity behind the scenes, going out with surveyors. A lot of work put into this very extensive purchase and sale agreement, which would,
How close are we with that?
Close.
on the same timeline. I mean, it's just imminent. It's very close to happening, which that'll just initiate their diligence period where they can go through and we'll fine tune the survey, get the easements and all of the language. And there's just a lot of.
But it could start the official.
Right.
The official.
That clock running. So.
Yes. Purchase
So
agreement.
there's a whole lot around that. I think it's probably good to talk about the Sandcastle festival and those logistics and how challenging and complicated those are.
I'll note that down.
I'd hope Brittany Lapp would be here because she has done some work to organize the.
Brittany Black or Lap, it's both.
Yeah, I'm not sure which one it is.
It's
She
both.
said that's one way, phone
Yeah.
comes across another way. In any event, she has been working as the coordinator. She's with this group of 16 or 17 carvers that are traveling. They were in Long Beach last weekend. They're planning to be up here August 2nd, which I planted that seed that this may not happen. There's a lot of logistics to get into place. There, it's not
Can you talk about the main logistic on that is. Yes.
The boat's a huge piece of it. Not having an events contractor, having somewhere, an entity for the liability. We don't have our traditional sources of advertising through Discover Columbia County and the Sandcastle page. And we're working on getting that access, but
Been difficult.
it's been
I mean, that's
it's been challenging for sure. And to put, and given that it's a wonderful event, and I think it has opportunity to grow, and I don't think we want to lose it. And the carvers all get paid a stipend in the past to be here, and this year they were going to do OPP Television is doing a documentary of this whole series of the trail, and they were going to do some features on Sand Island, but that's just the logistics aren't working out for that. Just for all the reasons stated, and more just that getting everything over the porta potties, the portable showers, I've talked to the marina, looked at them taking on some of that liability potentially, and they're just like. That's a busy weekend for the campground too, so.
Well, I know they're having staffing issues too, because they had connected some reservations on 4th of July, and so they're having their own.
Right. Yeah, there is a carrying capacity of the island, and it's not.
But I understand it wasn't a hard no from some of the responsibilities from Sanda, from.
No, not at all. They'll.
We have an
help you-
IGA with.
Yeah, they'll help,
Sand
they
Island,
will absolutely help to the extent they can, you know, but there's.
Which is, but I mean, you can't get it all done in 2 weeks. There's no way. It's
You
just
can't
not.
transport people over, you don't have a boat.
Right.
Well, I mean,
We
if
can
you had
use the
insurance,
captain Of the sand, we can
if
use
you-
Sand Islands.
no, no. That wouldn't be because they have their business to run.
Well, I know, that's what I'm saying is that technically we could ask them to do that, but they wouldn't be able to meet that need.
So where Brad could help out in the future would be talking to him a little bit. You talk to him, I know, would be like insurances, that he could carry insurances. The tourism would pay for it, but he could carry the insurances. We could hire Bob. But then we have this whole issue of ticketing right now.
You hire him for his boats?
No. Bob is a private
Captain.
captain that has
Licensed
been
captain.
hired, licensed captain that has been hired and has went through the Coast Guard. Because right now, the only certification it needs to be is a man overboard certification on it. And that's very simple. And that requires Bob showing up, Coast Guard getting on, showing how they would perform a man overboard
For the city boat?
for the city boat, yes, and the insurance. Now, on the other side of things is the ticketing through Discover Columbia County. We don't have right now access to that. So even if we had people show up who wanted to pay, we don't have access to that right. It's not doable.
It's not
It's a-
doable
it's-
and it's unfortunate.
Yep.
And it's sad that it has to come down to this.
So the stipend money that's been paid them already?
The one organizers had a small stipend to organize some things, but in the past, they've been paid $1,000 per carver to be there.
They were not already
They
paid.
have not been paid.
That was what they had been paid previously.
And I understand that several of them have bought plane tickets and travel arrangements, and Brittany Lapp had thought that, if there was some kind of she was literally in tears over it, cancellation. The city can offer some kind of cancellation that it may not be gone forever. They might come back next year.
That's fine, well, that's the future, but, so that money would have been given to them as they come in, the stipend money or $1,000?
They would have been paid,
Out of the one account, I assume, because that would be the operational account.
Yeah. And then there'd been ticketing through the Discover Columbia County that went automatically into that.
Go into the one.
Yeah.
So
We have no access to even pay them if we were to do it, but.
That's why I'm saying we cannot do the event. It's not possible.
Yeah, we'll talk a little bit more about that later. So, okay,
I
Um,
think that I would be open to, talking about something that we could do for next year to help them out, but I think that needs to be a discussion with the new contractor. So once that's done, then that could be something, okay, so this is what happened with the last Sand Island, event Sandcastle competition. What do you think about doing this or whatever? So I think that we really need to leave that in, something that the new contractor would work on. In my opinion.
I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, it needs to make financial sense.
That's it.
Which is why I don't think we should be making decisions without having a contractor in place for that right now.
Well, that's, it's just unfortunate. I think that thing was growing as it went on, but it is what it is. That's all I can say. I think this might have been the year that.
It's unfortunate.
We made money.
Unfortunate that the cancellation is probably gonna happen, but we can, year after. 25.
I mean, these guys are world renowned ice carvers. I'm amazed at what they could do. I've been to all of them. Cake carvers and OPB was gonna be there. Cake carvers off Food Network and pumpkin carvers, yeah. Yep. I don't know what else you can do. I mean, you gotta have insurance and RCIS will not allow it. That's where Brad would be a good asset. And he's not, he says, we have an IGA and I'm not. Doesn't sound like we'll do it this year, but maybe next year. Yep.
Okay, I've let them, and that's the logical sense, that makes sense to me, and I let them know that that was probably coming, and we'll do that, and hopefully we can work with our new contractor and get them to come back next year. So. I mean, one of the other things I wanted to talk about was and Crystal and I have been doing, spending a lot of time on communications. We understand that Cameron, our person that goes in between communications and the library, was desiring to resign the library duties and just keep the communications. So they're gonna go back to halftime, and Suzanne would like to recruit for another person for the library to keep that coverage, because I mean, libraries, if they're missing one body, it's a big difference over there. It results in hours closed. And it's actually a budget savings to the city, because it would drop down to be benefits and eligible.
Yeah.
So you'll see that coming soon, just basically the same, just split off there. And the League of Oregon Cities, so switch over to this, every even year, the League of Oregon Cities puts out this ballot of priorities, so.
I figured you were answering for us, so I didn't answer.
Well, no, it hasn't happened yet.
Okay.
We got some time to,
We're gonna make a decision and then go on.
and we're not even asking for submission today. There's 23 recommendations from the league's 7 policy committees. I'm the vice chair of the Energy and Environment Committee, which ended up being very timely with our power needs. So there's some priorities in this, priorities, and there's related to that. All the leaders have also sat on the Water and Wastewater Committee and the Economic Development Committees.
Well, we know that's number one, the panel you're sitting
No,
on.
I mean,
is number one
there's a
for
lot of
our
really,
area.
as you read through here, and I spent time going through all of these earlier, that there's, we're supposed to identify the top 5 issues that the city would like to focus on. The reality is that the league will continue to focus on all of them. I mean, tax reform is one of those that's on every time. There's actually the league's making a significant investment in tax reform, Measure 5, Measure 50, that's a given, so. But this is not for today's decision. This is something for you to take and come back with, and we'll talk about it at a future meeting.
Sure. So it sounds like we had a somewhat of a win for cities policing themselves at the Supreme Court with the Grants Pass decision too.
Yeah, that was a federal decision. It
Yeah.
doesn't change the state's rules around homelessness, but it's certainly a step in the right direction for cities to do.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yep. Which state's already put enough and we comply with that, so we're still okay, but yes. Yeah, I know that the city council is hard for you, I mean, you're stuck waiting for an answer from us week to week. So on the treadway, once we need to have this special meeting, let us know, we'll have the special meeting,
For sure.
okay?
Yeah, message received. Yeah, every day is critical right now to,
Yep.
looking at Halloween and getting everything in place. Just, it's a lot, and it's, Halloween is gonna happen this year. We have no reason to believe it's not gonna happen. It just might be different. It will be different. New contractor, new ideas.
Sure.
I've met with them several times, gone out through all of the props and inventory, and
I just want to remind that this is our tourism. I mean, multiple times on record. I only work for you and I'm billing for you for this for you. You own the whole, everything, multiple times on video. So I would hope that we could just get through a smoother transition on all this.
John, you were saying though that you went through props and stuff. What else?
yeah, just trying to get them up to speed with not having a contract, trying to acclimate them to the assets that we have and
Like the
where
store
things
and
are and
everything
how
like
things
that.
work and have worked in the past, and
they've been introduced to the store and things like
yeah.
that. Okay.
Yeah, you have to
Let's make
do
it-
that through the haunted house and through the upstairs and.
Yep.
You know, through the warehouses and, but yeah, we need a
And then
contractor to move forward.
We need it. We need them to move forward. We'll support it like we have in the past as far as some public works. You know, we're gonna keep track of those hours, so like we have before.
You know, we're heading into a very different business model here,
Yes,
which, you know, before we paid E2C their fee, and everything has happened, right? And this is, you know, they're gonna have an events budget for each event. We're gonna have a joint account, that there's gonna be, you know, a lot of oversight over that account. And we want to make sure that on the revenue side of the equation that we're moving forward, because the city, just if we're using hotel tax, is not enough money. So we
Yeah.
to pay all the bills
so
with
so
the
you have to
county
have
building and the
sponsors, you have to
contractor's
sell,
fees.
you have to have sponsors, you have to sell tickets, you have to have vendor fees, you have to do everything that needs to make it work. That's what I heard you say.
A focus on having events, but also the revenue side of generating revenue,
right.
advertising, marketing, promotions, sponsorships,
Yes,
all of that, which is a very,
reaching out to
a big side of
the international media, because it does have international attention.
yes, there's,
Yes, because it is a big event.
that's a big draw, yes. As we move forward, we're gonna be watching both sides of the equation very closely to make sure we're not.
So I wrote Susan down here, but she was asking, you know, she was mentioned week one, you know, just one or two, the first week or second week of October. And I don't see any reason to start any earlier than that, you know, maybe the end of September. But you don't need more than 5 weeks for Halloween Town. We were starting sometimes in the middle of September, and I think that's just and it was very slow. Doesn't mean you can't start setting up prior to them, but I don't think you have to have stuff going on before.
It's about.
So I wrote that down here and I
People
just,
come to town and hold them here and have them shop and go to restaurants.
oh yeah, it's big. It's big.
They'll be coming regardless.
Yes. Yeah, and that's why I wrote it down.
But we don't need to have big lavish events either, right? Maybe at the first onset.
Yeah,
But
I agree. I think
that
it
will
still
be on the contractor. The contractor will work together to.
All right, council, we're all gonna dress up in costume. We're gonna do a weekend.
I already have Sarah Sanders.
Every last one of us.
Made for me.
Every last one of us.
It would be nice to see
Nope,
council on
meet
it.
the real mayor of Halloween Town.
Oh, really?
Calabar has nothing on me.
I'm happy to know what you're doing, John, with the new contractor. Thank you for that update. And, you know, I know you said you have been very vocal about what is transpiring right now with our social media accounts and the Wanna account. So I appreciate you being transparent about what's going on with that. And it's really unfortunate that we're at this place right now where we're trying to get something back that belongs to the city. And that's really sad. So. I wish that we would have been able to take this by the reins a long time ago, so that we had a better handle on it, but.
Well, we'll get an update on that.
Yeah, do you have anything else in your,
No, just executive session.
okay? All right, so we're gonna go ahead and adjourn, but we will be on after, before I adjourn, I'll re-announce that we will be going into executive session under ORS 192.66028 and E. With that, we are adjourned.